Looking forward to not understanding Harris's speech tonight. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice. They're going to mandate you get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing this podcast with a friend. It's free, you know. Gary Vider is in studio, stand-up comedian. He's a podcaster now, telling a very interesting story. Good to see you, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
I was thinking back when I was hearing your story. I was thinking about you need to talk to the actor French Stewart, who has a dad who's also a sort of grifter con man.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know I don't know as much about your dad, but French would tell stories about like when his dad needed a new set of car tires. He, you know, if he's driving a 72 Mustang, he'd go to Hertz Rent-A-Car and just rent a 72 Mustang and then just drive it back to the house and swap out all the rims and put his old tires back onto the Mustang.
Oh, that's not, and they wouldn't notice.
They wouldn't notice, and they just drive it back.
That's a good scam.
That's a good scam, right?
Yeah, and do you know if his dad kept doing scams as French got famous?
His dad was always just a grifter.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't.
Same with my dad.
I don't know what that gene is. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's just in you, right? Is it
same
like
here.
Is it like being gay? Did your dad ever stop being gay when he hit his 40s?
Right.
Like, nope, he had more boyfriends. Like that's what he did.
I think from what I learned about doing this podcast and my father, and kind of what I assumed going into it was that it's just he had a need for it. Everything that he wanted to do, it had to be a lie. It had to be a scam. He had a scheme, and he pulled some amazing cons. And I talk about so many of them on the podcast, and it's hard to remember all of them because there are just so many. But he involved me in a good bunch of them. Some of them were insurance scams where he'd get an fender bender, and I'd be in the car and he'd tell me to act like my neck hurts as well, and then he'd file the false insurance claim, and then hopefully to get more money at a Geico. And then the biggest one, and definitely the most friendly one that we had was in the early 90s. He called up Madison Square Garden and said that he worked for Sports Illustrated for Kids as a photographer, and that I was his kid reporter. And in the 90s, they gave us complete access to the Garden. We went to over 50 games completely for free without tickets. And they would give us access to the locker room after the game, and I would go and I'd interview the players, and I even interviewed Michael Jordan that way.
Wow, we see the picture.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, and I did. There's an article I did for Sports Illustrated 25 years later, where they followed up because I did a post initially on Instagram, and then they got wind of it, and they were like, "Oh, is this actually true?" And I'm like, "Yeah." For over 4 years, we did this scam, and different Knicks and Rangers games.
Wait, is this scam actually true?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is kind of
right,
funny.
right. No, yeah, I wasn't scamming them so I could just write for Sports Illustrated, which is now pretty much defunct. But I did the article, and then I backed it up with a whole bunch of other pictures. We went to the Rangers. When the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in 1994, I was also at a series of those games. So I went to 3 of those games, and I was in the locker room after they won the Stanley Cup as well.
Yeah, it's so pretty miraculous for a 10-year-old, I guess, or whatever you were.
Yeah, yes, between the ages of 9 to 13. So when the Rangers and when I met Jordan, it was between the ages of 10 and 11.
And how did you feel about this? Because I remember being a kid and like shoplifting and stealing candy and, you know, later on, I don't know, stealing beer or doing a dine and ditch, as we used to call it, dash, you know, at the restaurant. And I did that kind of shit, you know. I wouldn't do it now. I don't, you know, sometimes I talk to women or people or something, and I hear them go, well, just buy the dress online, wear it to the cocktail party, and then return it the next day. And I go, no, don't do that. And they go, why not? It's easy, you know, you can do it. And I go, I know, but it's not morally... Yeah, right. I'm not religious or anything. I'm just like, that's wrong.
Right. Well, you have, you think about the consequences, and I think that's...
I don't know, but... I don't think about the consequences per se when it comes to buying. When someone tells me, well, just buy that suit online, wear it to the premiere, and then return it the next day.
That just seems wrong to you.
There's no consequences. Yeah. You can do it.
Right.
But it's wrong to me. Well, and I'm not virtuous. It's just wrong is what I'm saying.
Yes, and you can definitely get away with it legally. But yes, it is wrong because you're cheating the system. so to speak. And I think that's kind of what my dad did, or con men in general, is what their purpose is how do you scheme your way
But how
around.
did you see? If I was 9 and 10, 11, your age, I would have been like, sounds cool. Like, this sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, well, the sports scam was definitely fun. But then you get into the deeper things of everything that my father was doing, and it was causing havoc on our regular life as a family. So I have 2 older sisters and a mom, and we were constantly embedded in something that he was running. So he had a furniture showroom, and he wasn't delivering the furniture to a bunch of people. So
Right.
it's like, and this eventually got. The New York State Attorney General got wind of this, and apparently over 2,000 people were getting conned out of not getting furniture, and it was over hundreds of thousands of dollars that he was stealing from these people by not delivering their furniture, and he was forced out of the furniture business. And then he later in life, soon after that, he had a telephone communication business where he was installing payphones and old school, and he was doing this, but it was under the guise that he was working for AT&T, and he was getting big locations, Toys R Us, Costco. There was Bally's, Jack LaLanne, a fitness, back in the day, a good big time fitness company, and he had all these locations, over 200 locations located in Long Island and New York City and everything. And they were in belief that they were working with AT&T, but he was just disguising himself as AT&T. Eventually, AT&T got wind of this, filed a bunch of cease and desist letters, which led to the U.S. Marshals storming our house, trying to collect evidence to say that he is saying that he's AT&T, even though he was denying it. And he had this big court case that came about. And in that court case, they compiled a bunch of evidence against him because they raided our home. And magically, at the end of this court case, the evidence just went missing. The facility that was holding it all got broken into. And in the court documents that I was able to uncover, they accused my father of stealing this evidence. And I don't want to reveal too much about what happened in the podcast, but a big chunk of the podcast is trying to figure out, is my dad, was he a part of this scheme that caused this break-in? And definitely wouldn't put it past them.
Did they steal other people's evidence as well?
No, just that.
Just your dad's?
Yeah. Very conveniently.
And was there a value to the evidence?
So the value to the evidence was that this was it led to the case getting thrown out. So
was there value to what they stole?
Yeah. So that's what after they threw out the case, my dad said that there was sports memorabilia of mine, and also memorabilia that belonged to him from my grandfather's, war medals and things like that. So he was able to countersue them, and he won the countersuit from that. So that was like his.
Who's them?
It's AT&T themselves. So he countersued AT&T. Yeah. After they sued him.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is because you break into an evidence locker and you steal a pillowcase of cocaine or a couple of gold ingots, then that could just be thievery.
Right.
But if you steal receipts and paperwork, then that's your dad.
Yes, exactly. It seemed it was too much and they couldn't figure it out that if it was him or not, but I mean, it was too good to be, it worked in his favor.
Right. And what kind of lifestyle did you guys live? Or lead?
So overall, it seemed like everything was on the up and up. We would go on nice family vacations. We'd go to Europe for 2-3 weeks.
Really?
We would go. Paris.
When you were a child?
Yeah, when I was a child, we'd come out to the West Coast for 2-3 weeks over the summer. We had a nice home on Long Island in this town called Dix Hills, and funny name. But we would go there, and it was just kind of these nice family vacations, and you kind of seemed that my dad was on. We knew that he was always up to something, but I was a kid, and you're like, oh, you think that this is everybody's parent. You don't think that it's just your dad, but he seemed like he was always cutting corners, and you thought that everybody did that.
I think maybe your childhood would be preferable to mine.
Yeah?
Yeah, because your dad was a grifter, but, you got to go to Paris.
Right.
Or you had a second home, or there was some stuff. You know what I mean?
You definitely got some stuff, but you get some baggage as you become a teen, and you're like, "Nee, this guy's not so great."
There's some trauma or drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to figure it out sometimes because there is such a thing as just sort of zero, which is you don't have. It's just nothing.
Right.
That's how I grew up. It just, there wasn't anything. It just sort of, people were just around.
Did you have relationships with your parents?
Yeah, we were friendly,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they didn't really do anything or get anything or have anything. It was
Right.
just sort of, people just kind of.
Yeah, you wanted more action.
I like to go to Paris, or I wanted like a mini bike.
Yeah.
Or go-kart or something. I just wanted tools or something. I just wanted stuff.
Yeah. So you never they weren't giving you toys?
No, there wasn't any money. There wasn't any stuff.
Right.
There was no, I would have blown the mailman for a mini bike or a Honda XR75 or YZ80. I mean, I remember all the dirt bikes that kids had because they were around, and I had friends that had an XR75 Honda or Yamaha YZ80 or whatever, but I was just no fucking way in hell I was ever going to get near one of those things, but I just wanted one so bad.
A dog? You have a dog?
No
dog. Yeah.
No dogs, basketball hoops, swimming pools. It was all a bridge too far. It was all too much. I wanted a dog really bad, but a dog would have meant they would have had to take care of a dog.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing anything for anybody.
And your parents were working, both of them?
No. My mom was welfare and food stamps and that kind of stuff. So she was grifting the government. I mean, she was capable of work. I'll put it to you that way.
Maybe that's why, I think it's like our parents are such a reflection of us that you saw the struggle or what they couldn't provide, and that's why, you work as hard as you do. You could go either way, for sure.
No, it's a phenomenon.
There's nothing in between. You're never in between of that situation. You're going to wind up going one way or the other. Exactly.
I agree. When things are extreme, you either go this way or you go that way, but you don't really live in the middle. And it is a thing that comes up, almost daily on this podcast, but in my mind as well, too, like where they go, oh, his dad didn't hug him, so he doesn't hug his son. And I'm like, what? Well, why fucking hug your son?
Right.
You didn't like it when your dad never gave you a hug.
Exactly.
Now go hug him. And but his dad didn't do it. I'm like, there is a universe where I saw what my parents did. I saw the life they led. I saw the money was always an issue for them. They never had any money. It was
Did
always,
they argue?
They were both kind of flatliners. They didn't talk that much or say that much or do that much. They didn't really do stuff or talk or hit or argue or yell or anything.
Yeah.
They just kind of sat there the whole time with no air conditioning.
Right. I didn't have hitting in my house, but it was scream. It was nonstop.
A lot of screaming?
Yeah. So that's always what I wanted to avoid.
Screaming would have required some interest. You know what I mean? They just didn't have enough interest to yell. Like, would you yell?
That's even worse. That's it.
Would you scream at a stranger's child that you passed on the sidewalk?
No,
and the answer is no. Yeah. And well, why not? Well, it's not your kid.
Yeah,
you don't
cares?
give a fuck. You know what I mean? And that's how they did it. So there wasn't anything. But I said, I'm going to have to work.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a life that involved work.
Yeah, it's tough. And I looked at it the same way. I could choose. I saw the way that my dad was. I saw that he was constantly lying, constantly scheming. I saw how it affected his kids. And a lot of the things that I looked at, I was like, was my dad doing this really for his family, or just because he just loved to do all this stuff? He loved to pull these schemes. And as I uncover in the podcast, he's a very selfish person. And you try to avoid that as a person. Yeah,
I am not here to defend your dad, but I will say this, and whatever you think, you can be very honest about it. I just got off the road for the 10th year running. I was up at Pebble Beach doing the car race and doing the car show, the car thing. And it's big. It's Car Week. It's Pebble Beach. It's the lawn at Pebble Beach. It's the concourse. It's the racetrack. It's all the events, And I've been going for 20 years, but my son is 18 now, and I started taking him with me. I didn't take him with me when he was 3 or 4, but I took him with me starting at age 8. And it's kind of boys' trip, 3, 4 guys, stay somewhere, Airbnb, watch stupid 70s movies at night and race, during the day. And And so I take my son with me for 10 years. And sometimes people are like, well, that's just you doing what you want to do. And then you're taking because you want to go race a car than you. And it's like, yeah, it's true. But he has a good time.
Right.
And so he's eating at the cool restaurants and he's doing the cool Acura event
he
and
loves
going
it.
to the Quail. And well, he loves it like anyone would love it. Like,
sure.
like it's like literally, what are we doing? We're going to a place called the Quail, and there's nothing but champagne and caviar and the Duesenbergs, and you're just going to walk around and look at rich guys in loafers, eating caviar. And it's like, all right. And so it is about me. Like, I am doing it.
But he gets to spend time with his dad. I could tell that your kid likes this a lot.
Yeah, it's good. He's not like Jay Leno gearhead. He's just he shows up to the track. I go get into the car, and then he gets on his bike, and he just tools around the infield. But what I'm saying is even your dad may have been a selfish guy, and I may be a selfish guy. I don't know. I get called selfish or douchebags or something,
Right.
Enough
We all
that
do, yeah.
I'll buy it. Like I'll go like, all right, I'm selfish. I still sat in Gordon McCall's suite on Pebble Beach and looked at Duesenbergs all day on Sunday. Yes, and my son sat next to me. Like, so maybe it is all about me, but he still is. You got to Paris, is what I'm saying. You went to Paris.
I'll take you to Paris.
But who knows why your dad went, but you got to Paris.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
The Paris was a result of the cons. Yes, so there's some benefits for sure. The Sports Illustrated stuff, that's a good thing. But yeah, when you have the negative part is there is a heavy negative.
Yes,
and that's where you go. Where you're like, would I exchange Paris for him stealing my child, the dog, which eventually he does. So it's
really?
it's stuff like that where you're like, well, that cuts a little
now,
deep.
why does he steal the dog?
Well, that gets deep. So in what happened, and I talk about in the podcast, it's that when my mom and him, or I should say my mom was like, I'm out of this marriage. I got to get out of here. He did a lot of stuff. He represented himself at times in their court case for their divorce, and their divorce lasted over 10 years. He didn't want to give my mom any money. He didn't want to he didn't want to give her the house, and eventually he didn't give her the house. He won that in the divorce settlement, but he was holding on to my dog as collateral, and he was using a lot of manipulation, especially with me.
So your dad was a bad guy.
Yeah.
As well as a grifter.
As 100%. I don't know how many grifters are just overall great guys, and they're definitely somewhat, I guess, looked at it in a positive light in the movies and stuff, and you're like, definitely in a cool way. Oh, it's cool that he was it's cool when you hear a grifter. It's like, that's cool, tell me more. But then you think about, there are people that are getting hurt in the process.
Well, there's a lack of character that comes with grifting.
Yeah,
I would say you have to put your character aside.
Oh,
or check it
completely.
Check it at the door, like Quincy Jones wants you to do. So there's a character issue, and then the character is a kind of overarching governor that affects every decision. Character sort of affects. You come pulling into a parking lot, and you see someone's been waiting for the space before you got there, but then the guy pulls out and you slide in.
Right.
But it's also
my dad would go in the handicap spot.
Right. It's a character affects everything
completely,
and
every decision.
Right, and so keeping the dog or kidnapping the dog also is a character related issue because your dad thought he could get something out of it. Mm-hmm. And so if I thought, well, I could get something out of it if I took the kid's dog, but then character would kick in and I'd go, well, but how would the kid feel if I took his dog, even though it might benefit me, big picture. So that's where there's the battle.
For sure. And his reason for keeping the dog was he would say that once the divorce is over, I will be able to get the dog. But he was the one delaying the divorce because he wouldn't give my mom anything. So his manipulation was for me to force my mom's hand because I was living with her at the time. Like, hey, if you end this divorce, I get my dog. Imagine hearing that from your 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid. Right. And it's like, well, that's pretty heartbreaking. But it's like, oh, I need us to get the house. I need us to at least split the house so we could have money as a family again.
Right.
But so it was it's pretty screwed up way for him to be. But yes, he, as a character, that character trait of, I'm just going to make a sacrifice of my kid's feelings just for the benefit of really myself, or to hurt my mom too. That's kind of where he was coming from.
So you then were estranged for many, many years?
Many years, yeah. So the way the podcast picks up is my dad and I, we haven't talked in 24 years, and the goal is to track him down, find out why he made a lot of the decisions that he made, and to learn more about these schemes that he pulled off. But yeah, and to see what he's up to after all this time. Has he changed? Does he have any remorse? And yeah, can people change that? We seem pretty damaged when they're a father and they're. I mean, my dad was between the ages of 35 to around 45 when like the core of my like childhood. So can he feel any remorse for that time period?
Number One Dad is the name of the podcast, by the way. And so 24 years, did he try to reach out to you anytime in that 24 years?
No, basically what happened was I cut him off. I had to cut off his parents. It kind of caused a rift between one of my sisters and I. I stopped talking to one of my sisters for 6 years because I found out that she reconnected with him, and I just didn't want him at any point, like any part of my life. I blocked his number. When Facebook came out, I made sure that I blocked him. So it was just a whole bunch of different things that I went through just so I would not have him be anywhere in my life and or possibly showing up. I had fear that when I got married that he was going to show up as a waiter, because this guy is, I mean, just to be there. And when I started doing stand up as well, I was like, can he just show up and just be in the audience? And so for a while, especially when I was first starting, I wasn't posting my schedule at all. I had a fear that he was gonna be there. Granted, I was doing a ton of open mics at the time, but that would have even been worse if he saw it. Seeing your father after all this time and you're doing open mics. I don't know which would be worse, but
God, it's amazing how much negative impact so many people can have on other people's sort of life and not have a lot of thoughts about it, which is a strange thing. And then sometimes you think, well, what are you doing? Like, what impact are you having? Like, who are you putting out? Like, what are you doing? I think about that myself sometimes. Like, what am I doing? Who am I? Who has this beef with me? Well, who am I screwing? I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
I start with, I fucking pay for everything. So I can only sink so low. You know what I mean? Like, there is a Mason-Dixon line called, Dad pays for everything.
Right.
So it can only be so bad, right?
That buys you some leeway.
A little leeway.
Yeah. That's definitely good. Financial help, I think it goes a long way, where you're like, oh, I can get these nice things. I think with, I have 2 kids now, and I try and just do. Now listen, we talk about my dad did bad things. There are definitely some positives that I could take from what I learned from him. There's confidence. He showed me there's an ability to get to a place, especially in a career, that is attainable. I didn't know that. I don't think a regular person doesn't really think that career in stand-up comedy is attainable. Now, my dad didn't guide me in that way, but he had me meeting famous people very early on. And once you meet famous people early on, I think that it triggers you a little bit, like, well, how did they get there? You start asking yourself that question. They work really hard. And
well, you need like chutzpah to be a stand-up comedian or to be a successful anything. I mean, you just have to have chutzpah. And chutzpah can be applied in almost any direction. Could be business, could be stand-up, could be any form of entertainment. You know what I mean? Like, it takes, Brian Grazier has chutzpah. He walked into this guy's office and said, "You need me to work here," and chutzpah is a thing. So my family had zero. We didn't have chut or spa. We had nothing. So
you had food stamps.
We had food stamps. So I got retarded in my beginning of my life for doing something like stand-up or something, because I was like,
now, I wonder if that's good or bad, because it's almost like, well, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them that I can do this thing that you don't think I can do. It's definitely hard. It's definitely a hard weight to carry when nobody is believing.
It's not they don't think you can do this.
Okay.
It's why would anyone want to hear what you have to say?
Wow, yeah.
Nobody wants to
That
hear.
might be tougher, yeah.
Like, be quiet, sit down, or go outside. Like, no one wants to hear you talking. So that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been if it was a challenge, like, you'll never amount to anything. I'd be like, I'm going to do it, Dad. Be like the jazz singer or something. But not that. It wasn't that. It was, why would you...
What makes you special?
Well, yeah, what... You're going to go onto a stage, a room with 50 people in it, and hold a mic, and they're going to listen to you for 15 minutes? Why you? Why should you be on that stage?
Right.
And so that retards the situation.
Do you remember when you told your family that you wanted to do comedy?
I never had to tell my family anything. That didn't matter.
Right.
There was no... You're going to be a dentist. There was no anything. There was nothing. So I didn't tell them.
They didn't even care. They
why
were
would
like,
they care?
What are you striving to be? Nothing like
They
that.
wouldn't. Why would they care what I wanted to do? They weren't. They weren't paying for college. They weren't paying for anything. They weren't doing anything. There was no job. There was no join the family business. There was no business. Didn't care what I did.
And now with your son,
left.
you're like, what do you want to do? Do you ask him these
Yeah, I
kinds of
do.
things?
I do ask him what he wants to do.
Crazy. The exact opposite.
I'm not, as diligent about it as some parents may be. But
Well, you don't have. Well, that's the thing, is because you still want him to find his way. I think you understand what it takes to be successful. It doesn't have to be your exact career path. But if your son or my kids, whatever they want to do, they really have to have a passion for whatever it is that they're doing. You need some guidance if they ask you, but you don't want to force their hand, because if you're forcing your hand, you're going to putting your own stuff on them.
Yeah, no one's going to listen to me anyway.
You pay for everything.
You would think that paying for everything would get you some of the stuff you ask for, but now I've never had anyone do anything I've wanted them to do based on paying for everything. So I was thinking about that when I was driving in. I didn't have that with my ex-wife. I didn't have that with my kids. I didn't have...
Yeah.
I never really... Whatever it is I did, I just did. Whatever they did, they just did. But there was no doing anything I wanted.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah. I would take... you take Paris. I'd take more money. I think I could... I get farther along. I need more money. I'll take that.
Whatever the bouillabaisse of my life was, or the fruit salad, or the whatever the food metaphor is, or all the ingredients that went into my stew, it ended up working out because I was like, these people are fucking idiots. I'm never going to do what they're doing. This is a waste. They're sitting here wasting their life. They're not doing anything. I want to go out and get some. But I didn't know how to be ambitious because I come from working.
You didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it, and I didn't have education. So I was just like, I'm going to be the best ditch digger ever, and that's what I just did.
Where did you see it? How'd you figure it out? Because they say it's a lot of times like you have to have some sort of knowledge of it, and not just from a book or TV of like, oh, this person worked really hard. You have to be around somebody that was your motivating source or guide to become the thing that you want to be. Where did you establish that? There had to be a place.
First, it was just work on a construction site and survive. The first from 18 to 26, 27.
Anybody say you're funny there or something like that? Like, oh, you're better than this.
No, nobody ever.
Path.
No, there's no better than this for sure on the construction site. Construction site is a lot of Hispanics out in SoCal.
Right.
So they didn't really, not a lot of English.
Jefe!
He's funny, the Jefe. And the maestro's here. No, they didn't really get the subtle, no one, you couldn't show up Monday and go, did you guys catch SNL last night? They'd be like, what the fuck is that? We got drunk and we hung out. That's what we did this weekend.
SNL, ESL.
Yeah, ESL. So, no, there wasn't really any of that. I just knew I was funny.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I could get the horsepower down to the rear wheels. I was like, I know I'm funny, but I don't know what that means. So I just went and started kicking around. But later on, when I started thinking, well, what do you want to do other than swing a hammer? I was like, I'd like to be a boxing coach. And so then I essentially became a boxing coach to like white collar guys, you know. And I found the guy who was the editor in chief of the Los Angeles Times was my student, and the guy just loved me, and we'd go out to lunch sometimes, like on a Saturday stuff, and he just kind of look at me and go, you know, you're a funny guy. You're a funny guy. You're good at what you do, you know. And I started seeing like this guy's a really successful guy, and he thinks I'm a funny guy, you know, or good at what I do. But what I started realizing from like having lunches with Shelby, Coffee's his name, I started realizing, oh, we're not so different. We're not so different. I grew up, my mom, my dad, that fat guy with his Cadillac on the hill and his big house, you know, Daddy Warbucks, you know. I was like, oh, we're kind of this on the same level intellectually, even though I have no education and you run the Los Angeles Times.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't spell Los Angeles Times.
Yeah.
But yet we're trading jabs and barbs and having fun, and you're laughing and you're saying, oh, that's a good one. That's you thought of that yourself, you know? And all of a sudden I felt like maybe I'm not so far away from an intellectual capacity from this.
Right. That's unbelievable. I could tell Shelby had a great dad or something, or there's some great family orientation.
He was a third, I think.
Really? A Shelby the third?
Shelby, look up Shelby Coffee the third. He's in D.C. now, like running a museum or something. But he was so inside the Beltway, kind of old, just, you know.
But he took you on. That's an impressive thing, and and it happens in stand-up a lot when somebody just says that you're funny, and it just keeps you going a little bit longer in stand-up.
Yeah,
especially early on.
Yes,
and because you believe in yourself, you're hoping for the best, but you know, a few months in, you're like, I'm doing open mics. This is extremely hard, and then it's.
Did somebody pull you aside and?
I've had there are a few instances early on that stuck out. Brian Kiley was one that I always liked his jokes, and I met him early on because he was a writer for Conan for from the start of Conan, great monologue writer, and I sent him monologue jokes, and he was always very encouraging. I never got hired, but he told me that they were good. That kept me going. Oh, and my family had no idea I was doing this, but I always thought I could write. I could be funny. Before I told my friends, and that was the biggest mistake, when I told my friends that I wanted to do stand-up, they were completely discouraging. Oh, what makes you think you're so funny? But before I said that, I was always told that I was funny. But as soon as you tell people that you want to do something funny, oh, this guy's he's doing a bit. He's trying to be funny, and you're not. You just want to be normal again, like in their eyes. But now they think that you're striving for something that's outside the box. You kind of get punched down a little bit on that. But I'm trying to think who are the funny people. I mean, a lot of my funny friends that started a little bit before me. Nate Bargatze was somebody who was very encouraging.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, very, very nice. And he's somebody I find very funny. So getting his stamp of approval of somebody who is younger but coming up, I was like, oh, that's great. It's hearing from him, and from then on we became friends, and I would go around the city and just watch him do spots, and then I would do my shows and things like that, and we became very close that way. But that's stuff that's very encouraging to keep you going as a comic.
Charles Shelby Coffey III is a journalist and business executive who now a senior fellow at the Freedom Forum and a trustee at the News Museum in Washington, D.C. He was editor and executive vice president of Los Angeles Times from 89 to 97. So I met him in like 94, so right in the middle of that run. He lived out in Pasadena. He has also been executive vice president of ABC News and was president of CNN Business News, and so he was that guy. Now that's a 100 kajillion miles away from the Carolla family, just poor people who sat in North Hollywood. And
I wonder if he's looking at the boxing thing as outside the box for him too. It's almost like you met in the middle right there.
Yeah. He's just this super white collar executive world, and next thing you know, he's trying to figure out how to box.
Yeah,
and he runs into me, and I just taught the 6 a.m. class in Bodies in Motion in Pasadena, and he lived like up in the hill in Pasadena and had to go to the LA Times every day. And he'd have to just drive past. So he just found a boxing gym, and he would take the 6:30 a.m. class, 7:30, take a shower, get dressed, and then drive into the Times and probably pull in there at 9 in the morning.
Right.
That was his schedule.
So you meet him, and then from then on, something just started clicking. Like, I could do something else. Now you're thinking of doing something else other than boxing, huh?
I was always thinking about doing comedy, but it just was never coming together for me. But I was always trying. I was doing sketch and improv and that kind of stuff. But it's not like he told me to do this or told me to do that. It was more of the realization of we're not so different. And that's what I needed. I come from sort of downtrodden people that are sort of like kind of pseudo intellects, and I was always a horrifically bad student, and I just sort of assumed I was dumb and just kind of walked on a construction site, picked up garbage, and my family never said anything different, and so everything was very, you'd turn on the TV and the Brady Bunch were going to Hawaii, and we'd look at it and go, "Who are these people? Who are these people? Well, what do you mean?
Nobody goes to Hawaii.
How do you get a ticket?
Yeah.
What do? You have to go to the airport? How are you getting to the airport?
You guys never went on a flight.
Who has
You weren't doing
luggage?
that.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't have luggage. I mean, like, who would have luggage? Who would go to the airport? How do you get a plane ticket? Do you have to go to the airport? Then no one in my family had a credit card, so
Wow.
you'd have to bring a shoebox of bills to the airport and like buy a ticket. Like, it was all nuts to me. So somehow when I was like having lunch with Shelby and we were talking, I was like, oh, we're not a million miles apart. I'm not some sort of jughead imbecile a guy like you
And you're
would
not
never
expressing
dream
any of this. Did you express where you came from, or were you hiding that from somebody like Shelby, that you weren't completely disclosing all the facts of your family? That seems like something you would keep inside for a while.
Well, I was teaching boxing, the 6:30 a.m. class for $20 a class, at Bodies in Motion. Like, he knew I wasn't, gentries, and I didn't come from, the elite, or I wouldn't have been there, I didn't hide it. I knew he didn't care. Like, I knew he was kind of Renaissance-y. Like, he liked dudes and liked the idea that I was teaching boxing and swinging a hammer and driving a truck. He kind of got, I wish there were more at him over at CNN. I wouldn't have to deal with these fucking douchebags, these Nepo babies or whatever. I could tell he kind of liked it that I was blue, had a kind of, blue collar sensibility to me.
Yeah, something about where I started feeling more comfortable about everything, my childhood, when I started doing stand-up, because you start meeting people who you're like, oh, there are people who seem like they have a similar upbringing to me, different, but similar in a sense that it was a little bit, it's harder, or at least they're more vocal about it than other people on a regular basis.
Well, you and I must have both had the same feeling, which is I had a lot of shame about my family.
I kept it till the podcast, I never talked about it outside of a couple of close friends, and it was a story I didn't want to bring up because I didn't want to bring my dad into my life again.
Yeah, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I felt embarrassment about my family. My sister ran away when I was real young and stuff like that. And people would be like, "Where's your sister? I haven't seen her at school." I'd be like, "Oh, she's got mono or something."
Yeah, cops would be called, and I would have to tell friends that, oh, we just had some sort of like pipe leak in our house, or just make up any excuse.
Yeah, the weird embarrassment and shame stuff. It's random. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, and so you're being taught to lie, taught to and unintentionally lie to your friends.
Oh yeah,
and you're keeping your emotions closed off.
Yeah. Well, you're feeling shame and embarrassment, which is horrible when you're young, and then the shame and the embarrassment part is sort of forcing you to create some life that's alternative to what reality is, because reality is too shameful and embarrassing. So you have to lie. to lie to people.
And not only would I lie, I lost a lot of empathy towards anybody when they would be dealing with stuff. I really wouldn't. It took me a long time to figure out my emotional stake when somebody is telling me one of their own problems. I wouldn't be invested at all because I wouldn't care. I would think that I had such a troubled childhood and I'd been through the gauntlet of all these issues. My dad taking my dog. My dog was my best friend in my household. My sisters leave for college.
What kind of dog was it?
Chocolate Lab.
Oh, that's devastating. If you said like a teacup poodle, I'd be like, get the fuck over it, kid. But a chocolate lab. I got a black lab. Chocolate lab. Lab's the best.
Yeah. So, and that was
devastating.
That was my best friend.
What was his name?
Kobe, before Kobe Bryant, but
Right.
Kobe was my best bud, and he was the thing that was getting me through living in that house when both my sisters left for college. I remember specifically thinking, I'm in 9th grade, I'm the only one in the house with these seemingly 2 lunatics, and the only thing that's going to be able to get me through the next 4 years before I could leave for college is this dog. And then when it came time, my mom divorced my dad by the time I hit 10th grade, or was trying to divorce my dad by the time I was in 10th grade. I then lost my dog, and that was so devastating. And that experience really caused me to lack emotion towards a lot of things. That was he didn't die, but it was a death, and then I never got to see my dog again. So that being stripped away from you, it just takes something, and not just the dog. It was obviously all the stuff that was piling up. My father's parents, my grandparents, I lost touch with them. I never got to talk to them before they died. So these things weigh a heavy emotion, a heavy weight that really causes you to not feel. And I had to teach myself to be, I guess, what a normal person should feel like.
Yeah. My family's kind of version of that was everyone was so busy struggling all the time. And it's like when you're struggling, you just don't have a lot of time for empathy and other people.
Yeah, it's every day.
You're just struggling all the time.
It's exhausting.
Right. But it's hard to carve out good quality time for folks when you're literally struggling. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost like if you were...
You mean struggling financially or struggling with their own type of
everything
of shit?
Financial was a struggle.
Yeah.
Emotional. Everything was just struggle. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it'd be like if you were by the side of the road changing your tire, trying to get the jack up under the car, trying to turn the jack, and like someone just sort of came by. It's like, hey, Gary, how's it going? And you're like, yeah, okay. All right, good. You know, hey, you doing sets this weekend? Like at some point you just go, just leave me alone. I got to deal with this. We'll talk later. You know what I mean? But their whole life was basically that. Like, right. I'm struggling, leave me alone.
Yeah. God.
So for you went to college.
Yeah, I went to college. And
where'd you go to college?
University at Buffalo. Nowhere that impressive. But
you went to college? That's
I went
good.
to college. I wanted to go to I had to go to a state school, so I grew up on Long Island. So I had to go to a state school for, by the time my mom and my dad were gone, I'm in college, and my mom had very little money to send me away to school.
And you got back and you saw your dad after 24 years?
24 years. So when I was, 38. I was 38 years old.
Where's he now? Florida or Arizona?
Well, he has two houses, but he would be back and forth between Florida and New York.
I knew there's Florida in there somewhere.
Florida's always in there, and as far as I know, there's a house there too. But he has 2 homes that I was able to find out that on Long Island.
How much of this did he own?
In terms of own up to in terms of like his responsibility.
Not real estate. Yeah. I know we were fresh off of that.
But as far as he would confess to every single scam. He would love it. He brightened up every time I would ask him about a con.
How old is he now?
Now he is 71.
Right. So he would sort of brighten up. Yeah.
I mean, love talking about the cons, and also wouldn't see the fault that he had if when it came time to talking to him about, hey, about me cutting him off, he really took it as like, yeah, it was my decision to cut him off. But it's like my decision is based off of your behavior.
Right.
It's like there's no connection with the wrong that he played in this whole thing of my actual childhood. He doesn't take any responsibility. And same with my sisters. He wouldn't even look at it. He'd be like, "Oh, you cut me off." I'm like, "I'm not the only one. My two sisters also cut you off. My mom cut you off. There's a pattern here, and who's being cut off? It's you. You're the reason for a lot. This mess." But
did he escape justice?
Yeah,
totally.
As far as everything that I was able to uncover is that he never went to jail, but I was also able to find, and there could be more, but since 1984, he was involved in 24 court cases where he was either the plaintiff or the defendant. So, suing people for those false insurance claims, or he would be getting sued for something.
You know what I don't get? When people, it happens all the time, like they'll use the American with Disabilities Act to say the bathroom didn't have a grab bar on it, and I got to sue the restaurant. And it's like,
McDonald's cup of coffee.
Yeah, it'll always come out that this is this person's 86th lawsuit. And I go, can we have some provision for knowing a person is like a serial lawsuit person? I go, hey, it's their right. It's their right. And it's like, I filed zero. I've been sued because if you make money, you get sued in California. That's how it goes. Or if you employ people, if you pay taxes, if you try to do stuff, you get sued. But I'm 60. I've never sued anybody.
Yeah.
So if I did sue somebody, you should go, oh, maybe something happened that necessitated that lawsuit. Once your dad's on his 24th lawsuit, like, shouldn't
the judges be recognizing him?
Here's
also?
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean your dad's guilty, and it doesn't mean he's in.
Right.
Nicole Brown Simpson, them having a 911 recording of her screaming, "He's going to kill me."
Yeah.
Doesn't mean OJ killed her, but it is information that I think should be shared.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out whether he killed her or not, but I will call it germane. And when you're on your 85th lawsuit, I would call that germane.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you're not right on your 87th lawsuit, but I would like it to factor in.
Oh, 100%. And they don't factor it in at all.
Evidently not at all.
It's crazy. Yeah,
it is nuts, right? Someone just sues people for a living, and no one's
sues
like,
people for a living. You're in court as much as a trial lawyer.
Rusty the bailiff is not in court as much as your dad.
Right. So, and he's able to get away with it because that's the system, and that's what he would do, just constantly playing the system, whether it's court or just the regular fabric of society. He just figured out a way of how to con people.
It's really all we have is, I always used to say when I would do Loveline with Dr. Drew a million years ago, I'd go, look, if 10% of society just decided to be criminals tomorrow, it's over. There's not enough cops. There's not enough courts. There's not enough jails. There's not. We have cops. We have courts. We have jails. But we also sort of rely heavily on the number being real small. And as long as there's more, if more and more people just want to go on welfare and food stamps, then we're just fucked. There's a certain dignity thing that has to keep them from doing that stuff. But in 2024, I feel like it's kind of on. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, it's
changed after COVID for sure. People look at, the government could give me $600 for not working, so maybe we just keep not working. I mean, there are a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's always, for me, it's dogs at the airport. Like, it's like, look, anyone can go get a note from their doctor, and you and Kobe,
right,
can go through the airport in heaven one day. But if you wanted to bring Kobe, I got a lab named Phil, or I wanted to take Phil to the airport, I could go to Dr. Drew and go, I need a fucking note saying I have anxiety because I want to try. I want to fly with Phil for free. But something prevents me from doing that. And that's a sort of code, a dignity, a character, like a societal fabric.
Well, you're like, Phil, you shouldn't be on this flight.
Yeah, Phil's 110 pounds.
Yeah.
But
you see labs on there and you're like,
the point is the fabric is eroding and breaking down, and that's why you're seeing more and more dogs at the airport and more lawsuits.
Right. I think it probably is all connected with the fact that more people are figuring out how to break the system a little by little, and that goes
Oh my!
The dog comparison is 100% true. It starts with that, and then it weeds its way into society.
I sold, I don't know, bought my first house in, I don't know, 96 or 7 or something. Had to sign documents, maybe 8 pages worth of documents. Sold a house recently, 86 pages of documents. You know what I mean? All this is more fucking lawyers, more bureaucracy, more people, more guys like your dad. The reason 7 of those pages are dedicated to your dad.
Yeah.
Because somebody got fucked, somebody did something, and now we need more pages and more documents.
Yeah, something happened.
All right. You want to hang out and do some news?
Let's do it.
Leah Knauer. That's right. I said her name right. She's been in before. Funny stand-up comedian. Got shows coming up. She's going to come in and do the news with me and Gary right after this. Simply Safe. If you're like me, you think about safety and you think about people. And that's who you value the most. Because you can replace the watch or the necklace. But the people. And there's a lot of crime, especially going on here in L.A. I mean, every time you turn on the radio, some other celebrity got their home busted into, and those are just the ones they're reporting on. I've trusted Simply Safe to protect my home for over a decade now, and I've partnered with Simply Safe to offer my listeners 20% off a system. Just visit simplysafe.com/Adam. We all use it here, and when you pick up and move, you pick up your Simply Safe system and you move with it. It's not hardwired. They also have exclusive live guard protection. Simply Safe agents can act within 5 seconds of receiving your alarm and can even see and speak to the intruders inside of your home. Named Best Home Security System by U.S. News & World Report 5 years running. And Best Customer Service by Newsweek. It is Simply Safe, right, Dawson?
Protect your home this summer with 20% off any new Simply Safe system when you sign up for Fast Protect monitoring. Just visit simplysafe.com/Adam. That's simplysafe.com/Adam. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Qualia Senolytic. Well, Senolytics, the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging. I'm telling you, I feel 15 years younger, and you'll do it in a matter of months. As we age, the body accumulates senescent cells, or zombie cells, that cause symptoms of aging, aches, slow workout recovery, sluggish mental and physical energy, like pruning dead leaves off a plant. Qualia Senolytics removes worn-out senescent cells to allow the rest to thrive. You get the analogy, right? Take it just 2 days a month. It's non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, 100-day money-back guarantee. I took mine this month. It's awesome. You will feel different, and you will feel better. You know, we're getting older. Some of you spring chickens out there may not need it, but for those of us that are getting a little on, and anyone pretty much over 30 is getting on as far as the body goes, well, then you need Qualia Senolytic. Am I right, Dawson?
Resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/Adam for up to 50% off and use code Adam at checkout for an additional 15% off. For your convenience, Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. That's QUALIA life.com/Adam for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode.
My wife said to me, she goes, hypothetically, she likes to do those. She goes, hypothetically, if we had an intruder in our home, would you be able to protect our family? And I'm like, hypothetically, yes. I could do anything hypothetically. She's like, Gary, it's very important for me to feel secure that you'd be able to protect us. What makes you think you could do it? And I'm like, I would have an adrenaline rush under that circumstance, and that would help me defeat the intruder. And she's like, that makes me feel much better. Well, what I didn't tell her is that the intruder would also have an adrenaline rush. And his would be way better than mine. He'd kill us in seconds. Plus, I know my body. In that situation, it would not even pump adrenaline. It would pump estrogen. I'd be dealing with that. I get it. My wife, she wants a man who makes her feel safe. And that makes 2 of us.
Gary Vider is on the Adam Carolla Show.
Gary's got the pod, #1 dad, available wherever you find our podcasts as well, and stand-up special, which I need to find on my list here. It Could Be Worse, which is out as we speak, free on YouTube. Leah Knauer is here. She does stand-up as well. Coming up, got some shows at the Ice House in Pasadena. That'll be August 23rd. Good, new, revamped venue, the Ice House, right?
It's gorgeous.
Always a great audience, too.
Always.
I've never done it. I've heard it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Everyone says it's like just a perfect venue.
And the green room is like
really
decadent.
Oh, okay.
To die for.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And
The
it's a great
food.
audience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything's great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, owned by a bus, the Lakers of Lakers fame. Mm-hmm. All right, what do we got, Leah? We got some news?
We got some news. #1, Jennifer Lopez. This is hot news. Jennifer Lopez files for divorce from Ben Affleck with no prenup. Jennifer Lopez has done what seemed inevitable. She filed for divorce from Ben Affleck. TMZ has learned, but there are major twists, including the symbolism of when she finally decided to do it. J-Lo filed legal docs Tuesday in LA County Superior Court, but they were not filed by a lawyer. Jennifer filed pro per, meaning by herself and without an attorney.
Well, she's from the block. That's what they would do back in the day.
Right.
I would like to go one full year with no Sofia Vergara talk and no J-Lo talk. Like just 1 year. Like if somebody said to me, Adam, would you pay $10 to just go a year with you? You don't hear anything about J-Lo.
Right.
I'd be like, yeah. And then be like, how about Sofia Vergara? And I'd be like, nothing that bitch had to say. You're not going to see it. Her talking about her family or love or what it's like to be single and 50 or any, just nothing. I'd go, oh, that's definitely. And they go, all right, is it worth 100? I'd be like, I think it is. I think it is. And we'll keep going. Like I have a list of people that I would pay good cash, just a moratorium, just 1 year not to know what the fuck J-Lo is up to.
Yeah.
Whether it's the marriage, the good, the bad, the in-between, the dropping of the album, the
How
video,
many times
the
is she
marriage.
gonna get married? It's just every time. It's almost like that's keeping her in the news is the marriage.
Yeah.
So she's got to. Now it's going to be that's the boyfriend, and I'm going to marry this boyfriend. How old is this guy going to be? It's going to be on Ben Affleck's birthday. That the date that they get married. It'll be something to just keep her going.
I felt that way like 2 years ago about Pete Davidson. Like,
Yeah.
I'd
There was
go
a
like
lot.
$100 just not to hear who he's fucking or what he's up to or he's thinking about rehab or whatever it is. Just give me a year without hearing about what that guy's up to.
What's the max you would pay?
Well, you have to give me the celebrity. Like, are
Okay,
we talking?
J-Lo.
Are we? Look, I'm wealthy. You know what I mean? So
Take it
for
all.
me, I could go.
You could get rid of J-Lo. I think you could get rid of her.
Yeah,
Now listen,
buy her
I'm not
out.
talking about anything nefarious. I'm just saying I do not hear anything from J-Lo for a calendar year. That's worth $2,500. Might be able to get me up.
2,500.
I might get up to $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting around the other day at 7 a.m. being woken up by the garbage man. Me. I go, if I bought a house, I'd pay an extra $500K to not have the garbage man before noon.
Right.
For the rest of your life.
I get that.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's money well spent. Sounds expensive, but really,
Yeah.
over the course of 30 years,
Lifetime,
not that much. I
That
feel
works.
the same way with J-Lo.
Yeah.
It's a good investment. And Sofia Vergara, I'd pay for that. Heidi
who's
Klum, I
who's
wouldn't pay
really
as much
reading?
for. I'll give you $800.
Yeah. Heidi Klum's.
Here's what I'll do. I'll just get a kitty of about 40 or 50 grand, and you just tell me the celebrity, and we'll parse it out. You know what I mean? But eventually, I'll be out the 50, but I won't have to hear from like 31 celebrities for a year.
I feel like-
I was gonna say, is J-Lo really selling that much? Like, I mean, what are they buying? Are the clicks that are really people clicking on? Let me hear this J-Lo story. That like, I mean, I get the Ben Affleck thing now, but it's like anything else going forward. What does she really have? Unless she gets back with Mark Anthony. Right?
Oh,
that would be her move.
There was a time I would have paid not to hear anything from Mark Anthony too, but he silenced himself. But I would
Right.
definitely put some cash up to you.
I feel
Have
like
that
it'll
fucking
die
hack.
down now that they're getting a divorce. I feel like she'll step back a little bit.
Mark
You'll have your
Anthony
dream.
sings I Need to Know, right?
Yeah,
That is quietly one of the shittier songs of the last 25 years.
it sucks.
And it's also very self-aggrandizing. Like,
Yeah.
I hear they wanting me.
There's no real talent in that.
I don't
but
know what he is. I
Yeah.
really don't know.
He was in the movie Man on Fire.
I was.
Yeah, and that was, but for a very, I mean, it's a small role, but he had a couple lines, and then that's it, and then that song. That's all I know. And then I guess he's big in Latin America, or was for a minute.
Not every Latin guy who can sing needs to be called a heartthrob. Can we agree on that?
Okay,
Like
yeah.
he looks like a
Put
wet.
some money toward that.
He looks like a wet fucking rat to
Yeah.
me. Like why? Oh, look at him. He's a heartthrob. No, he's not. He sings in Spanish.
Yeah.
That's as far as we got. Doesn't make you good looking. All right. Well, anyway, she's on marriage number 4.
Yeah.
Would you, Gary? Would you take the J-Lo marriage number 5?
Would I take it? Ah, man. Well, I'm married already, so J-Lo, I don't know. She doesn't do it for me. Back in the day, Out of Sight J-Lo with George Clooney, I was like, oh my God. That I was like, she is incredible. And now there's a video of Ben Affleck. They were definitely they're having problems at this point. They're having problems probably from day one.
They'd have to.
And they're like, let's try this again. They definitely, when they started dating, they're like, it's the same shit. Like, Ben Affleck dealing with her, and then her dealing with him. But there's a video of him slamming this car door. Did you ever
Yes,
see that?
I saw that.
And he's just so pissed off, and there's photographers right there, and you could just see the stain in his face, and you're like, oh God. But so that video alone plays such a part in. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Well, he's angry Boston guy, and she's got to
Look at his face. Look at how pissed he is. She's keeping it together. She knows. He just does not. He doesn't give a shit.
She's just got to be a
watch
royal
this.
pain in the ass.
He should not have opened the door for her. What's the point of it? That.
Yeah.
That
It
door
wasn't
slam.
the speed. You know what?
It was the fingers.
No. What it was. Sorry, it wasn't the velocity of the door, and I wouldn't even call it an angry door slam. It was the flare after he
Flick
after
of the
he
wrist.
did it.
Right.
He
Okay.
did
Yeah.
the flip of the
almost
wrist.
a follow through.
It was the follow through of
Yes.
the door shut. If he
Okay.
had the actual speed of the door shutting and the velocity and the impact of the door was not great. It was the hand flare. It was to get the fuck out of here with the hand. Also, if he's pissed, why is he walking her to the passenger side of the car?
Right.
Watch the flare. He
Yep.
did the hand across. There's a certain joie de vivre to that, by the way, but it was a
Yes.
follow through.
Ooh.
That's what made
I
it.
love
That's
it.
what made it the pissed shut.
I love
Well,
it.
they've inspired me to never get back with any of my exes.
Shrewd.
Well, people can't change. Maybe that's why I shouldn't have looked for my dad.
No, the saddest. I used to sit on Loveline all night, and people are like, I want to find my dad who abandoned me. It's going to be
Yeah.
horrible.
Oh,
it's going to be. It's
I
never
know.
good because they're the same person thought it was a good idea to abandon their family X amount of years ago. They're still that person.
Yes. Yeah, it's very hard for anybody to change.
And she released that documentary about them in the same year that they divorced. Like literally 6 months apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right.
Kind of.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and that prenup, it's okay. There's no prenup.
Yeah,
they both have
why?
money. He's got a lot of money too. So, I mean, they have I know they're in the works of buying a house that was over $60 million.
Yeah.
And they have other properties too. So, I don't know.
Well, here's the
Maybe
thing.
he doesn't care. He's like, just take whatever.
Well, they went in. I don't know. I would kind of imagine that her net worth was more going in.
Yes.
But
Really?
He made more
Well,
money while they're together. in
more
his 2
could
years.
be her net worth was 90 million and his was 67 million or something like
Mm.
that. But as long as everyone's good, then I don't know if you need a prenup.
Right.
That's
Try to
wild.
figure out what the net worth of each one was going in. Ben reportedly worth 150 million. J-Lo reportedly 400 million. So I was low.
Which one of
but-
them
Wow.
Which one of them gets Matt Damon? That's what I'm
Ben, for sure.
All right. Well, we wish those kids well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, number 2, a Florida doctor was not wearing his hearing aid and couldn't hear colonoscopy patient screaming. According to the Florida Board of Medicine, Dr. Ishwari Prasad couldn't hear the patients yelling in pain because he wasn't wearing his hearing aids.
This is a little weird, this story, because you don't lie there silently in pain with a camera up your ass. There's movement.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of movement.
I mean, there's going to be a penalty. They should be able to tap out, just like, in a UFC fight.
Yeah, Big John McCarthy
Right.
should be able to just lift your hand and flop back down, just pull the hose out of your ass.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy trying to put something in your ass and pretending to not hear you scream, I've seen that before.
Yeah, I've seen enough prison movies to know
Yeah.
that that's just not a likely scenario. So, and also...
It seems
Okay.
I agree.
It seems
very
this is a
unlikely.
weird. Okay,
Let's take his side first, and then say that it's all true. And then,
this will work if you tell me this took place in this took place in El Salvador or something. I'll go, okay, this is not a United States
Well, it was
problem.
Florida.
Oh, all right.
Let's
It wasn't the
be
United
clear.
States. Was that your dad? That was a grift.
Right,
Your
right,
dad's
right.
suing the anesthesiologist now?
Guy
All
sounds like an asshole.
I just had one of these procedures. There's an anesthesiologist, and it's not like you do it in a storage facility alone with the doctor. There's 3 people standing around there,
Okay.
So the anesthesiologist is standing there monitoring all the stuff because they're giving you a little more, a little less. So if you're screaming in pain, there are other people in the room. The anesthesiologist would immediately be like, oh, the patient is up, let me up the propofol, or this is a bogus story. I don't believe it. I mean, I believe something happened, but it wasn't what it is.
You think
I'm
someone's
with you.
exaggerating for a lawsuit?
I think. Well, it sounds like there was several people that were complaining. It seems like the
What's
doctor
the news
involved.
source?
Yeah.
Here's what the
I'm with
news
you on
does.
that. Sounds
Listen,
phony, Mom.
we're in
USA Today?
that's not,
Now, how many people came forward and said this? I mean, it's got to be more than 10, right?
I'm just telling you,
For at least one procedure, he was not.
the anesthesiologist is in the room, and this seems weird.
Yeah,
Florida doctor's 84.
His team was trying to communicate with him, and he couldn't even hear what his team was saying. But you're right. He would be like writhing in pain.
They don't send you a text. Somebody's hand goes up and starts waving if your team's trying to communicate with you.
He's how old?
84.
Yeah.
Oof.
Look, his hearing aid was on the fritz. It's fine. I don't believe it. Something happened.
Yeah.
This isn't quite it. Listen, be prepared. I'll tell people all the time, it's, these high school kids from the Catholic school chase down and harass these bottlenose dolphins in Hawaii. It's like, no fucking kid can chase down a dolphin in the sea. They say, oh, yeah, they harassed them. It's like, no, they didn't. Mm-hmm. No, they didn't. The kid swims at 4 miles an hour. Dolphin goes 35 knots. They did not. This didn't happen. That's what the story says. That's all I get all day. That's what it is. That's what happened. I go, it's not what happened. It's what the story headline says, which makes you want to read it, but it's not really what happened.
I need more than one person. One person saying that. So
this is half of what happened.
Yep.
But
all right, we're not buying it.
Not buying it. All right.
All right. There is a new loneliness cure, apps that match you with strangers for a meal. A bevy of apps are trying to help isolated remote workers and others find new offline friends.
Oh, Going Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'd be a good name for this one, right?
Online friends.
I like that. Yeah,
I think you gotta call it Going Dutch because there's going to be an issue because you're going to like reach out to them and then you're going to sit down and have a conversation and then they're going to think you have to pay because you reached. What is the rule?
Of paying with a friend or what?
Yeah,
we pay for everything, so you're a great friend.
But I think the rule is whoever invites the other person to eat.
Yes, I agree.
Paying, right?
That should be it. Or
but this seems like a mutual decision, so I think you would split.
But somebody has to reach out to the other person.
That's true.
But I think to avoid this, it's called Going Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
It is usually
that works.
groups. These are like groups of people, so it's not
groups.
one-on-one.
Uh-huh.
But
What do you
But
do?
yeah.
We reach out. You're weird. I'm weird. We should all get together.
You're lonely.
Right.
I'm lonely.
Let's get together.
We both just finished masturbating.
Right,
We're in
exactly.
our refractory period.
Yeah,
We're doing
I'm
a little
hungry.
soul searching. I worked off some serious calories with that last one, third of the day. Should we just talk about something other than masturbation?
Right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard. Literally.
Literally
Yeah.
hard. Very hard.
Yeah, I think
it's nice, especially if
listen,
you move to a new city and you don't know anyone. That's nice to like meet different
Yeah.
people that you wouldn't normally be meeting.
It's tough.
when I was
It's not gonna be any big good.
when I was
It never will be.
when I was trying to be when I was interviewing to be a Catholic Big Brother a million years ago, and
What?
I was a million years ago, and they're just like sitting. It was like 12 dudes like sitting in a room, and they're like, "Why do you want to be a Catholic Big Brother?" You know, they didn't want weird, desperate dudes to like sexually abuse 9-year-olds. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
That's fair.
And this one guy, I got kind of forced into it by someone in my Acme comedy troupe, but
What, the sex act?
with the 9-year-olds, yeah. I didn't want to do it. I was hard, but I still didn't want to do it.
Sick.
I do like when people do that. I got raped. Yeah, by a dude, yeah.
Yeah.
But did you came, right?
I know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
But
What
I didn't
were
wa-
you wearing?
I didn't want it.
Yeah, you brought it on
It's
yourself.
like, well,
Yeah.
you came, though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but I didn't want it. Like, well, I don't know. It kind of sounds like something.
You enjoyed it, very
Party
much.
you did, right?
Yeah.
So there was a guy, and he's just like, I just moved into town, and like, I'm lonely.
Right.
And I was like, oh, like I felt so bad. And I also thought this guy could rape a kid.
Right,
Like,
right.
I got shoved into it, you know.
Did you get chosen?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Well, listen, I was like, if you're going to disqualify me, I'm going home, you know, because it's not a great financial choice to be a Catholic Big Brother. You got to pay for everything and pick the kid up every week and,
Right.
and do all that shit. I didn't
Date 'em.
You got to
Yeah.
date them, wine them, dine them. You know what else? You know what rhymes with that. The point is I didn't really want to do it. So, you know, I was like, I sat there and they were like, you do drugs? And I was like, I don't do drugs, but if I'm at a party or something and a
Right,
joint's going
right.
around, I'm not out.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm in, you know.
Not a
And-
loser.
yeah, I'm not square if that's what you're talking about. No narc here. And then they're like, how many times a day do you think about sex? And I'm like, 3 times.
Right.
Seemed like an answer.
Can't say zero.
Can't say 0. Can't say the real answer.
Yeah, right.
2,200
Yeah,
times.
right.
So I just
Constantly.
go 3.
Yeah.
Sounded good. So they just made me into a Catholic Big Brother. But
Wow.
Joe was a Catholic Big Brother too. What years were you?
I think the last time I did it was probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and I did it for about 4 years. But I remember when you just said that they heavily promoted that one of the former bigs included comedian Adam Carolla.
Really?
Wow, famous.
Out in L.A. then you must
Yeah,
have
out in LA, Catholic Big Brothers and Big Sisters down in
Nice.
Are you
downtown LA.
Catholic, Joe?
I mean, I was raised Catholic.
Oh,
but
I see.
I'm not.
I'm an atheist. I was raised an atheist. I just got shoved into it. But
Yeah.
that's interesting. So they promoted.
Yeah.
You're a headliner
alumni,
for
yeah.
the
That's
Catholic Big
awesome.
Brothers in
Alumni.
LA.
That's so funny. All right. Well, I don't know what were we talking about?
That's funny.
The dating,
apps.
or the
The
friend
apps.
app.
People use a computer to do everything. Why not this?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're there.
And at least it's
No
getting people
judgment.
out and about and meeting people in real life.
Right.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right. Fresno has the most chivalrous men in California, study finds.
Really?
It can be hard to find respectable men across dating apps, blind dates, and meet cutes, but a recent study found that women in Fresno may find it a bit easier than other women across the state. According to datingnews.com, in a survey of 3,000 women, Fresno was found to have the most chivalrous men in California. Fresno is ranked number 1, Sacramento is number 2, and San Bernardino is number 3 for having the most chivalrous men in their city.
Are they using the word chivalrous
That's what
correctly?
they said. I don't know.
Like that's a Ben Affleck type where you walk around and you
right.
open the door and then you.
Wait, how are they finding separate? Is it the least amount of domestic abuse cases?
That's what I'm saying. I know Fresno.
Right.
I don't see a lot of guys throwing jackets down over water puddles for women to walk over.
And then is somebody
like
taking notes when that happens?
What's the criteria here? I don't believe it.
The survey says some of the date behaviors most appreciated by the surveyed women include engaging and respectful conversations, planning thoughtful and creative dates, and offering genuine compliments. Also, 12% of women value men who open doors for them, while another 12% appreciate punctuality and consideration for their time.
You got to be punctual.
Punctual is a given.
Yeah.
And a thoughtful, creative date, that is so important.
Really?
Yes.
What's a thoughtful, creative date for you? Like
Oh my
you go
gosh.
to a Color Me Mine in Silver Lake?
Literally, that's exactly what I was going
knew
to
you
say.
did.
Oh my God, you know me.
Homo.
Yes,
I know that dude.
Something like, I don't know, fun, where you're doing something different and telling me when I need to be ready, what I should wear, and then like I don't want to think. I don't want to use my brain.
But this is more of like a
Tell me when to show up.
later time. A first date, you can't be telling, hey, you wear this. Like,
okay, that's fair.
Show up in a flight suit, bitch.
But the, but the vibe of it, like dress casual, dress formal, I would love that. Yes,
Whoa.
color me mine for sure.
You need an ashtray, right, baby?
Yes.
So, all right, hold on a second. Have you ever been on a date to a Color Me Mine?
I haven't.
And what is your most creative date?
That I've been on?
That's correct.
Okay. There was one time my boyfriend took me to I don't know what it's called, like a jungle gym where it's like a ropes course in Playa Vista, and you're like jumping around. It was really fun.
First date?
No.
You can't count dates with a boyfriend of 9 months.
Okay.
Exactly.
I need a first date.
It's actually 5 years. So it's even worse.
Yeah, that's not, you just do fun shit after that.
First date? I don't know. It's usually dinner.
Right.
Well,
so how can they be creative? Nobody's going to be creative on the first. You also don't know the person. You're going to spend money.
But if you know they're into a certain thing.
Yeah.
And also like going to an escape room or a Color Me Mine or laser tag or something.
Like,
we got escape room. It's called my apartment. Have fun, bitch. I'm shutting the lights. No clues. Deadbolt the door. So, all right. Wait a second.
I also love escape rooms.
Yeah, great.
First date needs to just be a dinner and a conversation. Now, the guy, how would you feel if the guy said, look, I know the restaurant. This place is amazing. You'll love it. And I'll order for both of us. Would that be okay?
Personally, no. I want to order my own food. But if I tell him
what if I said
want,
you like beef, you like fish, you like chicken, like what do you like? Because once you tell me what you like, I got this. I got this.
That's kind of hot.
That's kind of hot? Okay.
Taking control, I don't know. I personally like that.
And then a lot of feigned interest in whatever you're talking about, right?
I like genuine interest.
Yeah, but you won't be able to tell with me.
Oh, I didn't know I was on the date with you.
Well, I'm saying I'm a skilled. No, not with me, but with when I would go on a date, I would my skill would be feigning interest.
Acting
you have to act interested.
Let them talk.
See, this is why you don't live in Fresno.
Yeah, I'm showing
the numbers go down.
door.
Fresno, you moved to Fresno. Like numbers have gone down in chivalry. Chivalry's dead here.
The problem with people, or the thing about people, is they have no idea that when they're telling you a boring story that you're not interested because they're telling you the story, so they think you're interested. So then you just make noises and nod, and they think they're spinning a scintillating yarn.
I haven't even.
Aha! See what you just did? Yeah, too much.
Not only that, I'm not even hearing anything. I mean, there's nothing going in. I'm just sure. Right.
A lot of head nodding. So
nothing.
Well, I'm going to Fresno.
Go to Fresno. Faint. You have a boyfriend, right?
Yeah, maybe I'll bring him. Maybe I won't.
It'll help. Maybe.
I'll see if he.
What was the first date for you two?
Dinner. But I loved it because he said, you pick the place and I will pay. And I loved that very direct instruction because it's like, I already know that I like the place and I don't have to do the like, oh, let me take out my credit card.
What kind of place did you pick?
It was Salazar. in Atwater Village. Do you know it? It's Mexican. It was so good.
Is it expensive? Was
No,
it
moderate.
Moderate. That's good.
And I picked. I didn't want to
Right.
do a formal thing because what if?
Of course.
Yeah, it was something in between.
That's good.
Did he pick you up?
He picked me up.
Were you ready?
I was ready. Yes.
And how'd you meet?
We met doing improv.
Okay. There
Yeah.
you go. Oh, okay. So you had,
Yeah,
little
we'd
familiar.
already met. Yeah.
A little familiar. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
you can talk because everything you say, he goes, yes,
Yes,
and not only that, but my stepmom's a cunt too.
Exactly. Oh, you were there. You
Yeah, I
overheard
was
it all.
there. I know how these conversations go. I was a waiter at Salazar back then, so.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought I recognized
yes,
you.
That's right.
Yes.
Not a great tipper. This boyfriend of yours.
I didn't pay. So.
All right, let's see. We got another story up there. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the screen. No, I'm looking at your.
I got nothing.
All right, well then let's keep talking about this one. Chivalry.
What do
and
you
dates.
guys think? Like as men, what do you think is a good fun date? If mine
fun
is
date?
color me mine, let's get rid of
Well, I don't
dinner.
even know what that is, by the way. I was just saying yes,
Oh,
just like
it's like
I wouldn't be on a date.
franchise pottery
Pottery,
store.
painting,
Oh,
it's
God.
arts and crafts.
Yeah.
You get
That sucks.
stuff, and then you color it in with glaze, and then they bake it for you.
Well, I can tell you what is a bad date. A bad
Okay.
date is that for sure. And then no, I mean, because the guy's not. What guy is going to be interested, or a guy that you'd actually care about?
Mm-hmm.
That's
fair.
I mean, is this? Did your boyfriend?
No, we've never done that.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
good.
straight.
All right. Good.
Right. But
So
you
that's a
want to
good
go
sign.
to Color Me Mine.
Yeah, of course.
And
You can sit there and
bad
watch.
date. A movie is a bad date. A first date for sure
Agreed.
because you can't talk. And if you
Yeah.
are talking, you're those assholes. And
Yes.
comedy show for sure. I look at it as a bad date too.
Yeah.
Because again, you can't talk and you're just sitting there. What are they laughing at and all that stuff.
Yep.
Well, okay, let's try to figure this
But you
out.
see a lot of first dates at comedy shows, of course.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I mean, it kind of depends what you think your strength is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if you look really good in shorts, like if you look good in a bathing suit, then you go, "There's this beach volleyball thing going on," and we all
Right.
whatever, because that's you, like looking good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But like maybe that guy, maybe the guy who's really jacked. Not a good talker. So he wants to go on a mountain bike thing or something so he can put the shorts on and you can
Right.
see him, you know. So it's like Gary, you're a comedian, so you're a good communicator, like you're a good talker. So it would behoove you to go, oh, we'll go on a date, there's this quiet place, and we'll go to dinner, you know, and we can really get to know each other.
Exactly
But
that.
there's some dudes that are like meatheads and they don't have a lot to say.
Totally.
Now, they don't know they're meatheads, but I mean, like, I can think of some buddies I went to high school with. It's like, that guy shouldn't be getting a ton of FaceTime with anybody because he's a fucking meathead, but he should be getting in his bathing suit in front of people.
Right.
So-
and I guess he could go to a comedy show and just sit there and he looks good enough that he doesn't have to say anything. His strength is not talking.
He's like biding his time by
Yes.
like keeping it going longer by not talking.
Yeah,
Right.
like, let's go horseback riding. Because that's good for a meathead who's like kind of athletic, who looks good in tight jeans and
Right.
can handle a horse, and then she's gonna ascribe all these magical powers to him about how smart he is and funny he is. But the more he opens his mouth, the more that's disproven.
Completely.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I would think it kind of like your boyfriend's an improvisational guy, so he'd go, well, I know how to talk.
Yeah.
You know, like it would behoove me to get them into this place. But
Yeah.
like others might want to go kayaking or something because they're not.
You're
quite
giving me
so,
such good date ideas. Thank you. Horseback riding, kayaking, it sounds fun.
Yeah. So
We're ruining this guy's life.
I know, he's going to hate you guys.
I'm busy. Busy.
So I guess it depends what you think your strengths are, because you say a movie is bad for the first date, which I
Yes.
agree with.
Yeah, because you can't talk.
But not if you're not a
if
good, if
everybody,
you're not
yeah.
a real good talker, but you look good.
The
Yeah.
worst date I ever went on was a movie, and he took me to. Do you remember in like 2012 when Beauty and the Beast was like brought back
Oh yeah,
to
it was
theaters?
was it a Broadway show or like
No,
or
it was
singing? Yeah,
it was like
live, right?
re-digitalized or something.
Oh.
No, not that one. Like longer than that.
Yeah.
But
Sorry
it was,
for that date I took you.
It was the movie that I'd already seen when I was like 10, and he took me to see that and made me pay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
you pay?
And then we're not talking, and I'm watching this movie that literally I've already seen 1,000 times, but he'd never seen it, and it was like so bad, and made me pay.
Pay for your ticket.
Pay for my ticket.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
pay for my ticket. But it was like re-digitalized, so it was a premium ticket. It was like a $30 ticket. I left pissed. I'm like, I can't believe I just watched Beauty and the Beast. Didn't talk. It was horrible.
Yeah, that's bad.
And he wanted to go on a second one. He thought it went well. That's what's crazy after a bad date when guys are like, this was awesome. You're like, no, it fucking wasn't.
Guys are thick.
Very thick.
They don't read the room very well.
Yeah, what's going on with that? What's wrong with you guys?
Guys don't
It's
really,
hard, yeah.
people don't know how they come across to others, and maybe we're all guilty of that, but they don't know that, like, things like
That.
forcing you to buy your own ticket to the movie he wants to see is just
That's shitty.
Also, it's the worst investment ever because you're never getting a blowjob.
No.
Right.
And it could have been the best blowjob money ever spent.
Beauty and the Beast and a BJ.
That's right.
For $30?
For $30. Come on.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, why? And then what are you hoping to accomplish in this transaction?
Yeah, what was
you know what I
your-
mean? Like, whereas a movie I want to see, you've got to buy your own ticket, and then what?
Yeah.
Right.
And why would there be a second date? You're going to see Aladdin, and you're going to have to buy the popcorn. Like, fuck this guy. I don't trust him.
Never saw him again. Do you guys have a worst date?
I've had yeah. I got set up with a couple of psychopaths. I went on a date with a girl where we went. It was tough because I had no money, but I still kind of realized like I needed to pay, and I worked out this what I thought was like a scam. Like I knew this guy. His name was Ron Braun, and he was a nice guy.
Ron Braun, you made that up.
Ron Braun was his name. Gay couple and his boyfriend, and I was the carpenter for them. I built them. It was the first time I fell in love with the gay lifestyle because he's like, Ron was like, "Can you build me a bed?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll build you a bed."
I bet that wasn't the only thing you were nailing.
Can you build my boyfriend a bed? I was like, "You have two separate beds?" He's like, "Yeah, we sleep in separate bedrooms." I'm like, I like the sound of that. I'm like,
Maybe I could do this gay thing.
Maybe there's a little too much prejudging going on in the gay lifestyle. Like me calling everyone a homo all through high school. That wasn't really derogatory. So I would go to his restaurant, Muse, on, I don't know. Look up. It was a famous restaurant. It was a hot spot
I remember hearing that.
restaurant
It sounds
called
very familiar.
Muse on like La Brea or something in like West LA. And Ron was cool. Like, and I'd be like, Ron, I got a chick and I'm trying to impress her, but I don't have any money. And he'd be like, well, I got about $150 worth of junk you can do around here at the restaurant. And I would go in and work as a carpenter, and I'd work, I'd do like an 8-hour job, and then I'd like, okay, Ron, are we good for tonight, or tomorrow night? And he'd go, yeah, we're good.
That's romantic.
And then I'd walk in. And I'd be with the chick, and I'd be like, yeah, the guy that owns the place, kind of a friend of mine, and it was a hot, LA spot. And Ron would see me like, hey, man, hey, Adam, hey, Ron, how you doing? You got my table over here? Oh, yeah, no, we're ready.
Right.
And then they'd bring us all the food and do all the stuff, and then at the end, it'd be like, listen, your money's no good here,
Yeah.
We're good. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Carolla.
that would impress me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, except for I had to do 8 hours of carpentry, that day.
She's like, why are you so dirty? You're
covered in caulking and sawdust. Yeah, the restaurant Muse, did they have like a history on it or anything? It was just a really hot restaurant.
I've been here.
Hot LA restaurant from the 80s, 90s,
I've been here.
and beyond.
They did an open mic. Do they do open mics there?
I have no idea.
Okay, I think they do.
Dropped off at some point, and then Ron died of like hepatitis C or something.
Oh.
Like he died young, and then that was like,
Jeez.
that was it. But cool guy. I mean, Gay couples are the best or the worst.
Yeah.
Really. And you're right. You know, it can go, there's a lot of latitude with the gay people. But Ron was cool, and I work on Ron. This must be a modern picture. I did booze. We had like booze and everything. I don't know, does it say anything? Is there anything online like memory, like restaurant Memories Row or something where like.
They have an old Ace air conditioner in
Muse in Los Angeles. Like, I wonder if there's.
Was it Muse on 8th?
No, I don't think it was on 8th. I think it was like on La Cienega or La Brea. It was like on La Brea or something. But the point is, the scam was fix all the shit for Ron, and then get the cool guy, James Bond treatment.
Make him look special.
Make me look special. Yeah, that's the way I rolled. Not have you buy a ticket to
Thank you.
Cinderella or whatever it was. All right. Nate Silver, statistician, writer, poker player. That Nate Silver's going to join me in a second. Yeah. Gary Vider, Number One Dad's the name of the podcast. You should find that wherever you listen to finer podcasts. I don't know if you have dates, Gary, coming up.
Yeah, I do have a bunch of dates. I'm in Jersey. I'm in Plymouth, Massachusetts, Plano, Texas.
Where should people go?
The easiest place to go is go to GaryVider.com, and I post my show dates there and keeping it up to date. And then you could also grab the special, check out the podcast there. Everything's linked up on my website. So.
Leah's going to be at the Ice House coming up. August 23rd. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Leah. And, sorry, not Nate. Thanks, Gary. I was looking at Nate's bio. We'll talk to Nate Silver right after this. Hims hair, men. The only thing worse than losing your hair is waiting forever for it to grow back. Hims. Start seeing hair come back in as little to 3 to 6 months. Hims provides a range of doctor-trusted hair loss treatments, chewable, oral, spray, and serum. All from the comfort of your own couch or wherever you happen to be sitting. Simple, 100% online process. Just answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, treatment is sent directly to your door. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Adam. That's HIMS.com/Adam for your personalized hair loss treatment options. So if you're losing it, guys, let's get going at Hims. hims.com/Adam. Right, Dawson?
Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. Friendly, helpful service and parts and knowledge. All the stuff you need to maintain and repair your automobile. I've been with these guys for a million years. I always wear my O'Reilly hat when I'm walking around. People think I'm smart. And I am, because I use O'Reilly. Used to use the one up on Foothill in La Crescenta back in the day. I get my parts. I like to do it, hands-on. They got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online. Never have to worry if you're in a jam. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free in or out of the car. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find it and just the right battery that'll work in your vehicle. Also, windshield wipers replaced, brake lights fixed, quick service. They'll help you find the right part and point you in the right direction of a shop that can help you install this stuff if you need it. They're professional parts people. That's what they are. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you can go in and do it, or you can go online and get your stuff. At O'Reilly, it's easy. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit them online, O'Reilly.com/Adam. Yeah, let them know I sent you. O'ReillyAuto.com, O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Hey, man, I got something you need to do before you die. So after you rappel through like a hole in the ceiling into some sort of a hostage situation, maybe, you got your face all covered in grease. Somebody looks at you and says, where's the rescue team? Then you say, I am the rescue team. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Nate Silver is joining us. Nate has written a book. Nate, you know from, well, a statistician and, elections and gambling and everything else. Poker. New book, On the Edge, The Art of Risking Everything. And it covers poker and sports betting, techno, crypto, and everything else. Good to see you, Nate.
Good to see you, Adam.
I was kind of thinking about this the other day, being very risk averse. My family of origin did not want to risk anything ever, so they never got anything or did anything ever. And I realized you have to be kind of ready for risk.
No, I mean, this is kind of what makes the United States the United States. We would probably have been like big underdogs at DraftKings in the Revolutionary War. The British had a much bigger army. But, for the whole history of the Republic, people have moved to the United States to take risks, to found companies. And I think people are still not used to. I mean, look, for most of the evolution of the human species, you walk outside, you get eaten by a bear, or you get a cut or something, you're infected, and you die. I think people are not willing enough to take, and I'm not talking about like the personal drugs kind of stuff, but for careers, take risks early in your life, especially by switching careers or getting out of an unhappy situation. I think that's one of the lessons of this book.
Yeah, I just got back from the racetrack, and I was hanging around at a vintage race at Pebble Beach at Laguna Seca. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because all the guys that do vintage racing most of them are wildly successful. And the reason they can't vintage race unless they're wildly successful. They're driving multi-million-dollar cars at speed with 40 other multi-million-dollar cars on the track at once. And some of these guys are in their 60s and their 70s. And I realize there's one common theme here. They're all not worried about risk. They're driving million-dollar cars as hard as they can with other cars around them, and they're not worried about getting killed or destroying their car, and that's why they're all so successful in business as well.
Yeah, Elon Musk, in a very important pitch meeting to save PayPal, he and Peter Thiel were driving a McLaren F1 or something on Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto. And this is not a sports car for Silicon Valley, slow commute time. So he floored the accelerator. It spins out of control, does like a helicopter, lands on its wheels, but they were very nearly killed. They have to hitchhike to this vital investment meeting. But look, we're talking about people who are extreme outliers, both extreme successes, and there are some extreme failures like FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. You almost have to be a little bit insane to keep like doubling down once you've already won, right? Most people would be like, okay, I sold my company for, $500 million. I'm going to go retire in Tuscany or Hawaii and learn how to surf. But these people keep taking risks over and over.
And by the way, you can check out Nate on Substack as well. Silver Bulletin is the name of his bulletin. At Nate Silver is where you go. Very successful on Substack. What does Substack mean to you? What do you think it means to our society? I first started hearing about it probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. People sort of going, well, Alex Berenson can't work for the New York Times anymore because he's speaking too much truth about COVID or something. So he's going to Substack, And I like that. I like that there's a place for these voices to go. I don't know how you ended up there. I'm on Substack now, but I like the alternative platforms now.
Yeah, look, I worked for a giant corporation, the Walt Disney Corporation, for 10 years. And I worked really hard for them for the first 8.5 years. And I'm like, I actually have no particular incentive here. I mean, Disney thinks, oh, these are creatives that don't really care about the financial side. They just want creative freedom. And they were good about that. But I like building a business. I like having an incentive to work harder. I like having kind of a dedicated audience. Substack, there's no editors. You're totally independent. I mean, my stuff in some ways is pretty mainstream. I'm not getting into too much terribly controversial territory, but people that were pushed out of the mainstream media for whatever reason, people who care about free speech a lot, for example. And you saw that during some of the COVID stuff and then some of the stuff around peak, whatever you want to call it, cancel culture, et cetera. And that was a spark for the growth of the platform.
What did you do at Disney for a decade?
I ran my company FiveThreeEight, which was bought by ESPN in 2014 and then transferred to ABC News in 2019. And they said, Nate, you're never gonna have to worry about anything. We'll take care of you. But I think sold myself short. When you sign up for a company that doesn't have a business model and doesn't have a strategy to grow, then you start to feel stymied and your staff starts to wonder, what is my role here? There's no real business plan. And to be sure, media is a tough business. But I think content that's meant for subscribers for a medium-sized audience, I would not call it a small audience. It's doing pretty well. But that model where you build and build and you have incentive to hire and introduce new products. I mean, I know, I guess I'm a capitalist at heart.
Yeah, sorry. When you said work for Disney and then you said creative, I pictured you animating cells or something.
They sent me a Mickey Mouse plaque. I worked there exactly 10 years. They sent me a Mickey Mouse plaque when I retired, I guess, or my contract ran out, with my name misspelled. So it was indicative of the experience there.
Well, you have a motor, and I always tell this story, but I always found it interesting. I remember watching a story on one of those news programs, 2020 or 48 Hours or something like that, many years ago, and they were talking about the dogs they use to sniff out drugs and the dogs they use to sniff out, gunpowder and stuff at the airport, contraband and that kind of stuff. And I noticed that in the report, there were all different breeds of dogs. And I thought it made sense to me that one breed would be better at sniffing out fentanyl than another, but it turned out it was just all different breeds. And at some point, the reporter said, well, how do you figure out what dog to train, and what breed, and whatever? And they said, we would go to the pound and we'd find the most enthusiastic dog. And the dog that was jumping up and barking and trying to chase its tail, we would use that dog. But the one that was just sort of napping in the corner and didn't look up, that dog won't work. So then I realized, it's the same with people. It's not really the breed. It's not really the task. It's about the enthusiasm. And so for you, it could be something with Disney, or it could be playing poker. It could be anything. It's just the energy. It's just the enthusiasm that you direct.
Yeah. I like having new opportunities. I don't like having a routine. My routine is not having a routine. And one thing poker teaches you is to sniff out signs of weakness, if you will, or signs when people are bluffing or when there's an opportunity because other people are thinking about things in a flawed way. I mean, Elon Musk and these people are insanely competitive. I mean, I've always loved sports, never been any good at sports, but always loved sports, always loved to blend this analytical side with a competitive side. And again, I think people often like sell themselves short. They go work for a big company and especially when they're younger, they don't bet enough on their own upside. And I think it's a mistake for the most part. I mean, I know I'm just 3 times more productive when I'm, in love with the problem I'm trying to solve and when I capture the kind of the upside gains and the additional opportunities that come with that. And I just know how much my work ethic can vary to where it doesn't even feel like work, even though objectively speaking, I'm working all the time.
Yeah, but it's not a job if you love it, I guess, or some version of that statement. I also think there's a thing where I had this thought when I bought my first house, which was I wasn't really ready to buy my first house. I was a carpenter for a long time. I was making $20,000 a year or something. Then I sort of got into show business and sort of started making some money, but it was very early. But I thought I want to buy a house as fast as I can buy a house. And people said to me, well, show business is kind of topsy-turvy and you don't know if you're going to get another year or contract or season or who knows, why don't you cool your jets? And I sort of just said, I'll buy the house and then I'll figure out how to make the payments. And I'll just, whatever it is I have to do, I'll do it. And if the shit goes down, then the shit goes down. But I'll do it. And then the answer I would say to people is, when have I never been able to do it? You always kind of can figure it out. So in a weird way, when people kind of say, well, you really shouldn't be paying more than $2,000 a month for your mortgage, this a million years ago, I'd go, well, let's make it $3,000 a month, and I'll rise. I'll challenge myself. I'll put in some weekends. How about that? And other people would go, well, if 2's your max, you should be thinking more about $1,500 because what if shit happens? But I realized you throw down that gauntlet to yourself, and you will do it. When have you not? When have you come up short?
Reinvention is an important thing to our lives as we gain more experience and as we age. And in the media, any one gig is usually a pretty short-term career. And there are lots of people who kind of rise to the moment for 3 years and they're kind of never heard from again. But, it's a matter of determination. It's a matter of creativity, and a matter of luck, to be sure. I think I've been a very, very lucky person in my life. And there are lots of people who take these risks and they don't work out that well. But being differentiated and being diverse, not in some political sense of that term, but in the sense of having lots of different skills that you pick up, learning from good people. I'm a fairly social guy and you learn from smart people and I'm not a big networker per se, but you take advantage of opportunities. And you find that with reps that you start to get better at things. I used to be terrified of going on TV or things like that, but you do it for the 50th time or whatever, and you get a little bit better.
So, poker for you, I'm looking down here. Tournament earnings were into $8 million or 800,000.
800,000.
Sorry, 800,000. Yeah. Sorry, I screwed that up. $800,000. Where do you think you are overall with gambling? I think I heard you bet an entire, NBA season and ended up by $5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so I made $2 million worth of bets about, $2K at a time for the entire 2022 and 23 NBA season. And it probably took me 500 hours, and I came out $5,000 in the black, so less than minimum wage. Although most people, 98% of people don't earn a living at that at all, and I'm in the minimum wage, not the 1% half of it. It's also tough. People don't realize that the books, if you're good, the new retail philosophy is to cut you off, right? They'll say, oh, you can bet up to $11 on this game, which is certainly not enough to earn a living. And so start out on a hot streak and like any better, the hot streak ends. But to have skin in the game and to understand what a grind sports betting can be and how preoccupying it can be, NBA especially, first game start 11 New York on the East Coast at 7 at night. Then there's a Clippers game, which ends at 2 a.m. East Coast time or something. So, your mental bandwidth is pretty compromised during the NBA season if you're doing that for fun.
What do you think at this point, if you were betting on the election, what kind of odds would you lay down for Harris versus Trump?
So we have a model that's about 54-46 Harris. I know we have people on the show who are probably gambling knowledgeable, so 54-46 is not quite 50-50, but it's probably effectively 50-50. In fact, there's one factor here. RFK Jr., most people think is going to drop out of the race and endorse Trump. Mm-hmm. And that might shift things back to 50-50 or something like that instead. So this is not a cop-out. You can go and see what our model says. If it said 70-30 Trump or 70-30 Harris, I'd say that. But for the time being, it's really kind of a jump ball.
And obviously, a new broom sweeps clean, as my grandfather used to say. People sort of were on to Biden, and they got Harris, and they got sort of reinvigorated, I think, with Harris. And then the convention and everything. So she's riding high. At a certain point, she's going to have to do some sit-down interviews, I suppose. And there's maybe some exposure there, perhaps, that might not be helpful. There'll be a little bloom as off the rose, a little bit, I'm assuming.
I think so. It was kind of a honeymoon period. I'm in New York, like I said. So I remember the Lin Sanity period where the Knicks had all these injuries, and then Jeremy Lin, this, Asian point guard from Harvard, is like the toast of town for 2 weeks. And then it kind of reverts back to the mean. Look, I think she's been a better candidate than I would have thought. She's not the first candidate. She was not a very good candidate in 2020. Not the first candidate who was better in the second try. Barack Obama got demolished in his first race for Congress back in 2000. But yeah, I think the coverage will get like a little bit more scrutinous and skeptical, although I'm not sure it's entirely equal how candidates in different parties are treated necessarily. What I don't know is whether Trump will kind of get back on his game. I think Trump has been emphasizing the wrong themes when there are obvious things like concerns about the economy. Immigration's a good issue for the GOP. She ran way to the left in 2020. And instead he's been kind of, putting out some information that's of dubious quality or talking about her race, whatever else. And so he was not prepared for the switch that Democrats made. And he should have been. If you're preparing for an NFL game and the team has a backup quarterback with a very different skill set and you're not game planning for both, then you screwed up in your preparation. So they're catching up now. I think J.D. Vance has been negatively defined. That might be hard to undo. But I imagine he'll have a better period than he's had so far in August.
Yeah, the night after the debate with Biden, Trump's team should have started game planning for the backup.
For sure, if you were following the markets that night, right? There are prediction markets. I advise a prediction market called Polymarket, for example. You saw Democrats' odds going down as the debate got bad, but then it got so bad that they stopped going down because people thought, oh, actually, it's so bad they're going to have to replace Biden, and somebody else, we didn't know it was Harris at that point, might stand a fighting chance when Biden didn't. So they, I think, made the rational calculus. I mean, they think the election's an extremely high stakes existential issue. They made the rational calculation to make the percentage play.
I heard a rumor theory, conspiracy theory or something, that the Democrats sort of wanted to go early with the debate so they could sort of tell where he was at, and if it didn't work, they'd have justification for doing what they kind of wanted to do anyway, but not get so close to the election that it wasn't tenable.
That would have been smart. Based on the reporting I've heard, there's no confirmation of that. I mean, I think Biden was surrounded by a lot of true believers, and it had to be the Obamas and the Pelosi's and other kind of people at arm's length who pushed him aside. But yeah, look, anytime you get more information, it's another poker thing. You want to reveal information so that you can make better decisions. And the fact that that was revealed instead of having the first debate in September when Biden would be what we call in poker drawing dead. I mean, there was no, if he had that debate September 10th, where there's another debate scheduled now, there's not enough time to recover. But now there is. And so if they did that on purpose, I have to give them a lot of credit for foresight. I don't know that was what actually happened, though.
What do you think from, being super bright and knowing tells and poker and knowing this subject well, what do you think actually happened that night? Like, Biden says he had a cold. Clearly it wasn't that. Says he was jet lagged, but that was 13 days earlier or something like that. I mean, he was as rested as you could possibly be. So we can go ahead and throw out the two things he said, which he lies a lot as well. What happened that night? Was it like shot up with the wrong cocktail of things? Was it like literally drilled so hard that he was trying to remember what he drilled? Like at a certain point, you got to be a little Magic Johnson going down the court. He doesn't know who's getting the ball either at half court. You know what I mean? Like, can you over drill, over prepare, and then people lock up? What do you think happened that actual night?
Yeah, I think he choked. I think the kind of sports analogies are correct here. And there's discussion in the book about performance under pressure, most of the context of poker, but also I talked to like an astronaut and like an ex-NFL player, people like that. When you are taking risk, your body behaves differently. Your heart rate goes way up. Even golfers, their heart rate goes way up when they're playing a PGA Tour event. And if you are not used to that, or you're tired or stressed out, or you're, too old, then you can go into like a downward spiral. And there was no escape. You can't be like, sorry, folks, do over. I'm just going to call it a night early. You can't it's not like ending a comedy set early or something. You're stuck there for 90 minutes. And I think he choked. And I think Trump was smart about letting him choke and not giving him an out, right? Trump kind of let up the gas a little bit to be like, we just want Joe Biden to speak for as long as possible and talk himself in circles. And this is where, poker players, you think of them as like drinking whiskey and eating donuts and stuff like that. A lot of these players, more so than me, frankly, are quite physically fit and take their eating and their health and their training seriously because it's a physical game. When you are facing risk, that's when your kind of natural instinctual system comes more into play.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much of that is hardwired versus training. I'm a very relaxed person, just sort of by nature, and when shit goes down, I sometimes get more relaxed.
Yeah, if you've dealt with, I talked to one poker player named Jason Kuhn who grew up in a very abusive household in West Virginia. And he's extremely cool under pressure. The first person from his family to go to college, can have a temper, but he's like, when the stakes are higher, I am more focused because I've been there before. My kind of default operating mode is to deal with uncertainty and stress, and I have that gift. So that might be more innate. It can be learned, though, I think, and you see it in presidential candidates who improve on their second go around. Once you get used to saying, okay, I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but that's okay. That's my body understanding it's a high stakes moment. And so it's a little bit like, the analogy you can sometimes use, it might be like being on a controlled substance a little bit, where maybe you learn to, like, if you're using like psychedelic mushrooms or something, maybe you learn the third or fourth time, okay, my body's giving me certain stimulants and I have to like counteract and adjust for that. And then I'll be okay. And then I'm more of a pro potentially. Yeah.
You learn the dude maintain, which is what your buddies will yell at you the first time you start freaking out on mushrooms. And then later on, you learn to dude maintain yourself. It's funny because you brought that up during the debate, and I was talking to Tucker Carlson some years about it, and it's like Trump talks over whoever he's debating so much that he doesn't let them hang themselves with their own rope. And the way that debate worked is you got 90 seconds to explain immigration, the border, the economy, or whatever it is. And that worked out, and we're going to shut Trump's mic off. And that turned out to be a huge advantage because it's funny. It was always clear to me that Trump was basically, it's like a cop pulls you over and goes, you've been drinking tonight? And you go, no, officer. And then they go, where'd you go? But they let you talk because you're going to tell them a story that's going to make you sound guilty. If they kept cutting you off, you got a turn signal that's out and you got a brake marker that's out. Like, you'd want them to do that instead of having to sit there and smell like beer and explain to them where you were.
Yeah, this is a big journalist trick, too. I talked to like 200 people for this book, and they're friendly interviews. They're not usually hostile. But most people can't stand silence, and most people can't help but like share their story. They're kind of like naturally human beings. So when I, went down to the Bahamas to talk to Sam Bankman-Fried, he's telling me lots of things that he probably shouldn't be telling me. He's declared bankruptcy. He's going to be arrested in a few days. But people have an insatiable need, at least most people, to not keep secrets.
Well, they hate lulls and silence. Like, it's a very weird human thing. Like, anyone has ever experienced that lull when you're sitting in some boardroom and there's like 6 people talking, then all of a sudden everything stops and there's like a 5 Mississippi of no talking. It's like the most weirdest, most uncomfortable thing in the world. And if you start asking people pointed questions, sometimes they get defensive. But if you just sit back and listen, they may start spilling their guts, which is a good technique for you to do your journalism. It's not great when you're doing an interview that's on the radio or podcast or TV, because then it's dead. It's a bunch of downtime. But for someone who's doing a written journalist, that's probably pretty effective.
Yeah, for sure. The awkward moments are kind of what you want. And at one moment in the Bahamas with SBF, it's late in the afternoon, it's getting dark out, and it's getting awkward because like someone has to turn the lights back on, and it's not going to be me, right? I want it to be awkward. I want him to be a little bit uncomfortable, to either have to like call his bluff and have him turn the lights off or not. But and again, most of the time you don't need to do that. But if you go to like a house party with no music, it's pretty awkward and probably more honest if awkward conversations tend to come out.
What was your read on that guy? Just your vibe being in the same room with him for an extended period of time?
I think he's kind of crazy. That's not a clinical diagnosis. I think, people in my world are used to seeing smart young kids who I'm sure he's like very high IQ and talented in different ways, but, smart young kids who talk a big game, who win a poker tournament or something, or have a winning streak in sports betting. And then they're just okay. Right. And they get cocky and they get arrogant. The fact that so many people sung his praises, he's getting investment from like the best firms in Silicon Valley, and all these Oxford philosophers called effective altruists are palling around with him, and he's like shooting commercials with Tom Brady. The bystander effect. You're walking in New York and someone's keeled over and bleeding, and people are like, oh, someone else has called 911. I'm not going to do it myself. I think there was a bystander effect with people drinking the Kool-Aid over SBF, because he made a lot of flawed decisions. He made a lot of bad choices even before the FTX scandal.
Where is he now, and what shall become of him?
He is in jail in Lower Manhattan, I believe, in New York City. He was handed a 20-year prison sentence. I believe he is appealing that verdict. And
he's not so, he's young, obviously. If he does 10 years, he's still going to be in his 30s when he gets out, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I talked to him at his parents' home in Palo Alto, California, and his dad greets me at the door. I used to live there actually for a year as a kid. And you walk in, it's like, oh, it's like a friend visit. I'm like visiting my friend Sam. We're going to play video games or something. And then you see the ankle bracelet around him, and you have to hand over all your audio equipment. You have to scramble to scribble things in your notepad. And I asked him, would you take a 2-year sentence and then some probationary period afterward? And he's like, I'd have to think about it. I'm like, you are a bad gambler, dude, right?
Yeah.
You'll be lucky to get away with 10. He wound up getting 20 in part because he took the witness stand and really made the judge and the jury mad at him because he's saying things that were contradicted by a very compelling prosecutor government case. And so he's not actually he loves risk. I'll give him that, but he's not actually very good at calculating his odds.
Yeah. Whether it's him or Trump, getting people to not do sort of who they are in front of people, it's a strange conundrum. You basically, his lawyer needed to say, you can go up on that stand, but you can't do you. You have to be somebody different that's palatable and likable and shows contrition, and like Trump, you got, 75 days to sort of not be you. You know what I mean? You can't get up there and bitch about Kamala's race or talk about some local guy who you feel like you got elected. Now he's endorsed Kamala and you're going to yell about him for 20 minutes instead of the border and the economy. Like you just now shutting the mic in the debate was a physical way to get Trump not to be him, essentially, which is interesting.
So that convention in Milwaukee or wherever it was, Milwaukee, I think, a month or so ago, full disclosure, I'm not a Trump voter. But for the first 30 minutes of that speech, after he had nearly been shot, he was kind of subdued and, a little weird. It's not kind of the shtick he does usually, but quite compelling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am starting to feel sympathy for Donald Trump as a center-left liberal. He's certainly going to win, right? They're running Biden, who's 82 years old. But then he veers off for another hour into typical, spirals of various grievances and stuff like that. And I think he had a winning hand, and now he misplayed a card, and now it's back to 50-50.
Yeah. So the question is there a lawyer good enough to coach up Sam Bankman-Fried, and is there and is there a consultant good enough to get Trump to not be Trump? And the answer is sort of no, because that's why they're who they are.
After 3 campaigns of Trump, I wouldn't bet on a person changing at his age, certainly. And with SBF, he is a con man, among other things. That's not the only way to describe him, but that's a fair way to describe him. And con men love the con. They love thinking they can fool people. When I talked to him, it often felt like he was auditioning arguments that he would use at the jury. If he'd ask my advice, I'd say, Sam, these arguments are pretty legalistic and bad. They're not very persuasive, right? But that's not my role as a journalist. But yeah, he thought that he could fool people, and people that were close to him, maybe you can, right? Maybe people that were kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, but not, 11 or 13, whatever, random members of a jury in New York.
The book, On the Edge, The Art of Risking Everything, Nate Silver. Also, listen to him, or find him, I should say, on Substack at Nate Silver, Silver Bulletin. Nate, I hope you can join us, periodically and give us an update on where you think the world is at. It was fun talking to you.
I'd love to do that, Adam. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, Nate Silver. All right, I'm going to be tonight, Jimmy Kimmel's Club in Las Vegas, doing 2 shows, and then Boise, Idaho. That'll be September 6th, and then that'll be the Egyptian Theater, and then Albany, Oregon. That'll be September 7th. Just go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows, and let's see. Until next time, it's Adam for Nate and Gary and Leah saying mahalo.